Hi, my name is Miss Dee Dee Davis, and I am the Adult Services Librarian at the Vista Grande Library. Uh, we'll be going over the Literati Book Club selection and discussion in a few minutes here. Just a kind of a heads up, I am deaf, and I have been deaf for the last 3 years or so. So if the volume is kind of weird, it is because of me and not you. So you might have to constantly adjust, I don't know. But the Literati Book Club in person usually averages about 25 plus people from the ages of 40 and up. And this is going out to who knows where. So we'll see what sort of response we get online. And this particular thing will be going for different formats as the months move forward. We're gonna, still be online, it'll still be YouTube, but we're gonna have different layouts and different focuses of different topics. So, should have said welcome.
Yeah, you gotta get the book in there.
It's our first book, Originals by Adam Grant. How non-conformists rule the world, or move the world, same difference. He also was the author of Give and Take, which admittedly I have not read, but also did pretty well. Thank you for joining me. Originals, and I have a whole bunch of notes. I have like 27 pages of notes front and back because I have problems. But so I'm just going to talk a little bit about the book and some of the examples and some of the experiments that they did that I thought was really fascinating to support why the originals are better or more successful than starters or like first people out of the gate. So some of the things that they talked about, which you may already know, when they talk about being original, being creative, is the creative process is a destructive process. So you have to destroy before you create something new. So there's to various degrees. So that's kind of a standard ideology that most people are aware of. People who are originals are not rule-abiding. They tend to be more spastic. They tend to be more creative. The creative people are the ones that are more often getting in trouble because they're restless or they're doing things that are not within the norm or that's in the preconceived box or ideal. They may be coming up with better answers or solution, but that is not what purpose of the American school system. So idea of breadth of different experiences to help come up with solutions, because that's basically what originals are. Well, there's creatives, which is totally not solution based necessarily, but expression. So like the more different experiences you have, and the variety and the depth of those experiences help with becoming original. So they talk about Nobel Peace Prize winners in science for the last over 100 years, from 1901 to 2005. They looked at all the different winners and they said if the people who have won these awards, really high caliber awards in science, also had humanity hobbies or art-like hobbies that helped make these abstract connections. And the one with the activity with the most was dancing, and performance art led to the highest numbers of Nobel Peace Prize and science winners. And then the one right under it is writers, authors, which I thought was pretty fascinating, because writing is really not anywhere near performance art. They also talk about the quantity. So not only is the idea of the creative process is not to create this one perfect thing, to fixate. There is no such thing as perfection. Tidbit, highlight this. There is no such thing as perfection. There is only preference. That's it. My little nugget to you. So when you're creating something, they talk about the quantity. Just bang it out. Just do as much as you can. Just flow. Don't worry about there's no failure. There's no mistakes. Everything is just get it out there. Just do as much as you can. I talk about composers, saying that the people who have the composers, traditional composers like Mozart and Beethoven, their best work came during their more prolific time, and what we consider their best, because when they were asked during their lifetime what they thought was their most famous or their favorite piece, it's not always the same as ours. They said some of the ones that they asked, they had, oh, which one's your favorite piece, or which one do you think is your best piece, which is not necessarily the favorite. And those were still different than what the popular ones were that we think of now, we associate with them. And they said, so they did, hundreds. You're more likely to get something original and something neat and something that's a hit and something that really a breakthrough when you do that. One of the other experiments that they did was the peer-to-peer review. And they said that managers, incidentally, and higher ups are not great at predicting profitable ideas. Perspective is tainted, basically. So they're looking at it too critically, and they're not just enjoying it. They're not just allowing them to view anything, a new project or anything with, that'd be interesting. They're always thinking in terms of managing, how many people are going to work on this, how much is it going to cost for the output and all this sort of thing, and it kind of ruins it. So they said the best thing to do is peer-to-peer reviews. And the example that they used was a circus company, multiple circuses, that's a word, right? Circuses, okay. So multiple, I was going to say circi, but whatever. Circuses. And they had this one group create or come up with like 10 new acts. And then they filmed them and they showed the managers and the higher ups which ones they thought would be the most predictable or most profitable, which would be the best ones the audience would really enjoy, and to include in the next upcoming performance. And then they asked other people in a different circus at the same peer level what they thought, using their judgment, what they thought the audience would like. And then they kind of got a mix of those answers and performed them for an audience. And it turns out that the peers were way better at predicting which ones the audience liked than the managers and the higher ups were. And this goes for other things. They also mentioned TV pilots, and they actually talked about Seinfeld, because everybody knows it's a show about nothing. And they talked about how it almost didn't get picked up. And the guy who did pick it up wasn't really in TV. He was an outsider, which is a big thing about being original, is he's an outsider. When you're too inbred, you lose sight of originality. So you have those kind of dynamics, new experiences, and like travel. So this was really fascinating to me and kind of like made me bummed, but they talked about, the example they gave was fashion designers. And they said it's best for people to travel to places that are more exotic than your own, have a better chance of spurring creativity. So if an American goes to Canada or moves to Canada, they won't be as creative as an American who moves to Japan or Korea, or something that's more exotic than what their current upbringing was. And when I say moved, I mean worked. And so they talk about it's not just to visit, it's not like a 2-year stint. They did the math, which is mind-boggling to me, because they said the highest creativity, the most amazing new original ideas, in this case the fashion industry, were people who worked for 35 years. That's the peak of 35 years. I'm thinking realistically, if you're lucky, you could probably do this twice. But odds are it's just not going to happen. So I don't know how they came up with that. Because, I mean, they gave you some of the ideas of the methodology of the experiment or the data, but my goodness. But it's just interesting that that's how it kind of plays out. So I encourage you to move anywhere. This is my that's what this book is all about. To get you to move somewhere like Japan. So anyway, but it's just got all these little data points in the book that talks about what creates an original person. It's not a rule abider. It's not a person who stays in a place, whether it's a work location. It's not a person who gets comfortable. Basically, you want someone who is constantly pushing, but not necessarily in an aggressive manner. Like a lot of these things happen at a very, I want to call it lazy, but behind the scenes subconscious sort of thing. They talk about procrastination. And they said the human brain remembers uncompleted tasks better than completed tasks, because once it's done, it's checked off. You don't really think about it. They said, so if you have, like, say, chores or even like tasks at work that you haven't done, the back of your mind, it's nagging at you because you know you haven't finished them, and it just stews and stews and stews. Procrastination is the death of productivity, but it is the birth of originality, of creativity. And so a lot of times, I know I've had this, and I know the science people. I've had engineers, well, actually they were both engineers, and a mathematician. I hang out with nerds. Anyway, so I have friends who were in these positions, and they had some assignments or some project they were working on, and they couldn't figure it out, and they kept putting it off and putting it off, each their own different thing. And I've had them, all of them, they actually fell asleep. They were so exhausted they slept. And so they ended up waking up and like, I know the solution to this. And it was like exactly what was needed. And some of them actually woke up, like I woke up and my head hurt. I woke up with a massive headache because all night he had been thinking about this in his sleep, but he finally worked it out. So all sorts of little data points like that. It's really intriguing. I really like this book, but I know some of the Literati members that have read this. I don't know if it's the demographic, where they are in life and priorities and what have you, but they're like, eh. They're like, yeah, it's great, or they just flat out was just not interested in it. But I encourage it. I thought it was really insightful, almost more on a psychological level than necessarily as a blueprint to do something. It's just, at the very least, it's more food for thought, as opposed to I'm going to totally use all these points and become some original master. So that is that's more a book for November. And then our next book, which we'll do in December, is Armada by Ernest Cline, and it's a fiction book. And it's, if you've been around Gen Xers or late millennials, you'll have an immediate experience with this. With all the things he talks about, there's a lot of nostalgia in here, So if you're unfamiliar with it, if you're younger, then it'll be new. But if you are older, then you're like, the good old days. But it's a little dark. He also wrote Ready Player One, and Ready Player Two is actually coming out next week. This will be a book that you can pick up at the library. We have a couple of copies for you to check out, to sign out with. I'm leaving questions about the original by Adam Grant in the comment section, so you guys can start threads on that to keep it consistent. We'll see how that works out, and if not, we'll switch things around for next month. So thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you later.